Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gift. In this video I'll be cutting this top, so I'll be drafting the pattern first. I already have my lines on the paper, so the line at the top of the paper is my shoulder line. From my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches, from my shoulder to my under bust is 13 inches, from my shoulder to my waistline is 16, then from my shoulder to my top length is 19 inches. So I basically have all the necessary lines to draft my basic bodies. So this is my armhole line. I'm going to divide it into two equal parts to mark the midpoint. So I'm going to mark the center of the line, and I'm going to go out by half an inch from the center of the line. Then I'm going to mark my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance on this line. Then I'm going to connect the midpoint of the armhole to the bust measurement, and I'm going to connect it to my shoulder slope like this. On the bust line, I'm going to mark my bust span, that is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is going to give me 4 inches. I'm going to mark the 4 inches on my bust point line, on my under bust line, on my waistline, and on the top length, and I'm going to connect all the dots together on a straight line. On the under bust line, I'm going to go out by 1 inch on this side of the dart line. Then I'm going to go out by half an inch on the side facing the center. I went out by 1 inch on the side facing the armhole area. So on the dart line, on the dress length, I'm going to go up by half an inch. Then I'm going to connect both dots on the under bust to that point. I went up by half an inch. On the dart line, I'm going to come down by half an inch from my bust point line. Then I'm going to connect the lines on both sides of the dart to it like this. Then I'm going to connect the dart line to the midpoint of the armhole like this. So I'm going to use this curvy part of this curved ruler, and I'm going to connect it to the midpoint of the armhole line. From the midpoint of the armhole line, I'm going to come down by half an inch to tighten the bust. Then I'm going to go up by 1 inch, so I'm extending the line by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect the rest back to the dart line like this. So ensure you extend the line by 1 inch or 1.5 inch, so you not run short of fabric when you want to join it. So I'm going to connect that point to my chest measurement on this line, and that is going to serve as the new armhole. I already have my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance, so I'm going to replace the dart. I will check what I have there and replace it. On my under bust line, I'm going to mark my under bust measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to replace the dart there also. Then on my waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to replace the dart also. On the top length, I'm going to mark my hip measurements divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. So I'm adding 2 inches to the hip because that part of the top is really free. Then I'm going to connect all the points together. On the top length, I'm going to go out by 1 inch from this side. So I went up by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect it like this to the main. I'm going to connect it back like this to the line. So if you have a curved ruler, you make sure you use it and make it a bit curvy. I'm going to be coming down by 4 inches from the top length as the allowance. Then I'm going to roll out a straight line there. Then I'm going to extend this line out to on a straight line. This is my chest line. I didn't extend it to the center before, so I'm just going to extend it out like this. So I'm going to open the paper up like this. Ensure your paper is folded into 2 equal parts. So I'm going to extend all the lines I have on this side on the other side of the paper. I'm basically going to repeat all the measurements with hook on this side on the other side. So I'm going to take the bust that from my bust line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. That is the difference between my front half length and my back half length. So the difference is 1 inch. So that is what I came down by, and I extended it to the center of the dart line like this, and this is the bust dart. So I extended the dart line to the 4 inches allowance I came down by. Now I'm going to come down by half an inch from my waistline. On this side of the dart line, I came down by half an inch from my waistline. Then I'm going to use my free hand to connect it in a slanted way to those points. So this is the opening at the front, the shorter side. So I'm just using my free hand to draft what I want there. So this is what I have on this side. On the other side of the dart line, I'm going to come down by half an inch also. Then I'm going to go out by 1.5 inches from my dart line. Then I'm going to connect the 2 points together like this with my free hand. So I'm going to open the paper up. You can see I've taken the measurements on this side of the paper on the other side. So I'm going to connect the side of this paper to the point where we just marked the 1.5 inch we came out by. Then I'm going to just make this line more visible. So you can see the front is not giving us the shape on the thumbnail, so we're going to make adjustments to that. From this point, I'm going to go out by 3 inches. So I'm going to mark the 3 inches. Then I'm going to take my ruler like this and curve it back into the line. So you can see my line has a sharp edge, so I'm just going to try to remove it and make this line more curvy. So if you have a curved ruler, or you can use your free hand and make it curvy. So I'm going to use my eraser and erase this first line. Then I'm going to curve this in. So make sure that the measurement you took on the other side of the paper, you take the same measurements on this side of the paper. Ensure you do everything you did there. For the bust that's on this side, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from my bust point line, and I'm going to connect it back to my dart line like this. For the neckline, I'm going to come down by 6.5 inches from my shoulder line. Then from this point of the neckline, I'm going to come out by 1 inch. Then I'm going to connect it to the 6.5 inches on a straight line. So determine the side of the neckline you want to slant before you do this. So I'm going to extend that 6.5 inches out on a straight line. Then on the other side of the neckline, that is the shoulder, I'm going to go out by half an inch. Then I'm going to take this curved ruler and connect it to those points like this. So I want this part to be curvy. So if you have a good curved ruler, you can use it and connect it straight down, then, or you can use your free hand to do it, but just make sure it's good. So I connected it to those points like this, and this is it for the neckline. So I'm going to be shading the parts that I'm going to cut out from this pattern. So you just look at what I'm doing carefully so you don't cut out the good parts from it. Now I'm going to cut out the excess part of the paper I don't need. So I'm going to extend this dart line on the other side down so I'll be able to cut it well. So I'm done cutting out the unnecessary parts. So I lost the clip of cutting the bust. That's what I did was that I splitted the paper from where the red arrow is touching. Then I used it to overlap the other side of it with my masking tape. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. So this is the back. I already have all the lines for my basic bodies. So the length of the back is 19 inches, the same as the front. So I marked my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I came down by 1 inch as my shoulder slope by 2. Then I marked my neckline of 3 by 3, 3 for the width and 3 for the depth. Then I added my zipper allowance of 1.5 inch. So what I'm going to be doing on my bust point line, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 from the zipper allowance line. So I marked that on my chest line, on my bust line, on the waistline and on the top length. So I don't have an under bust line for this back pattern. So I'm going to connect all the dots together on straight lines. From my top line on the under bust line, I'm going to go up by half an inch like this. So I marked half an inch. Then I'm going to go out by half an inch on both sides of the dart line. On the waistline, I went out by half an inch on both sides of the dart line. Then I'm going to connect it to my bust line like this. I'm going to connect both lines to my bust line like this. Then I'm going to connect it to the half an inch I came up by from my top length. So on those points, I'm going to mark my bust measurements divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches seam allowance. Note that I'm adding the measurements after my zipper allowance line. On the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4. I'm going to replace the dart and I'm going to add 1.5 inches seam allowance. On the top length, I'm going to mark my hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then I'm going to connect all the points together like this. So I'm going to divide my armhole line into 2 equal parts to get the midpoint. Then I'm going to go out by half an inch from that midpoint. Then I'm going to connect it like this to the bust measurement on the chest line, and I'm going to connect the top to the shoulder slope like this. So I'm going to connect the dart line to the midpoint of the armhole line like this. From the top length, I'm going to go out by 1 inch from the side of the paper. Then I'm going to connect it to the line. I'm going to connect it back to the line like this in a slanted way. So I did the same thing for the front earlier, so ensure you do it on the back too. So I'm going to extend the top length line, the waistline and the bust line to my zipper allowance. On my waistline, on the zipper allowance, I went out by half an inch. Then I'm going to connect it to the top of the line like this. Then I'm going to connect it down also. This is to avoid any form of zipper bulge at the back. Then I'm going to cut out the excess paper I don't need. So with this, we are done with the back. So this is basically the pattern drafting for this tie. So with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.